Thank you. I'd just like to make a comment and welcome our new clerk to our meeting, Ms. Smith. Well, we're doing it. I wasn't here.
Anyway, motion passes 12-0. Approval of the minutes dated April 25th, 2018. Moved by Romano, supported by Gillette. Comments? Please vote on your iPad. Motion passes 12-0. Public participation. Does anyone wish to be heard? Anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Health and Human Service Committee recommendations. Does anybody want any of them voted on separately? Okay, motion to approve them in their entirety. Moved by Duge, support by Romano. Please vote on your iPad. Motion passes 12-0. Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee recommendations. Moved in their entirety by Brown, support by Leonetti. Questions? Please vote on your iPad. Motion passes 12-0. Resolutions. Do we only have one? Okay, we have two. We're going to do them separately because I think there's some people that want to speak on B. So, motion to approve Resolution A authorizing the City of St. Clair Shores to collect the 2018 winter tax levy. Motion by Sauger. Is there support? Support by Lucido. Any questions? Nope. Please vote on your iPad. I don't see it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did you want to? I apologize. Okay. No, I thought he shook his head no. I looked at the iPad. I'm sorry. Motion passes 12-0. Okay, item B, opposing House Bills 5916 and 5917. I'm going to open with Commissioner Lucido, and then we'll also have Chief Rendazzo speak on this. Commissioner Lucido, would you like to?
Yes, thank you. Our resolution is opposing the House Bills 5916 and 5917, basically where they're trying to take away our local control over puppy mills. Jeff is here to speak to it. He's very informed on the bills, and I'd like to hear what you have to say, Jeff. Chief Rendazzo, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucido, for introducing the motion. I just want to start off with a few things, and one of them is for the House Bill 5917, which is attached to House Bill 5916. The House Bill 5917 specifically states that a bill to prohibit the local unit of government from enacting or enforcing an ordinance, policy, resolution, or rule that regulates a qualified pet shop in the local unit of government. And as all of you know, over the last 5 years, I worked really hard with your support, the support of the county executive, in making sure that we enact proactive animal welfare ordinances. And just recently, if we just take a quick look, recently we went to a home in one of our communities and we removed 22 dogs. They are now over at the Macomb County Animal Control being housed and waiting for their court case. However, in a lot of this, what happens in these certain situations is that this bill would prohibit local government from enacting any ordinance to regulate pet shops. And in 2009, Michigan Department of Agriculture was no longer inspecting or licensing pet shops. That was turned over to the local body of law enforcement. So for us in Macomb County, we inspect those pet shops and riding stables. But also, if we look at it on a larger scale, in February of 2018, we had a home in Lenox Township, and I have the information here for you if anyone would like to see it. In 2017, this resident imported 310 dogs from a large-scale breeding operation out of Minnesota into the state of Michigan, and we're housing those dogs in Lenox, Michigan. Just in 2018, she already has over 40. That's really important for us because if we look at it at just our little local level, what would we ever do as a municipality to house 310 dogs? We could never, and most of you that have been to animal control, we could never house that many dogs. It would be a major disaster for us. And a disaster for me is anything that's going to overwhelm my resources. I have 7 officers. It took me a long time to work with Michigan Department of Agriculture to go through 310 house certificates. What I'd like you to also know is that House Bill 5916 really is just regurgitating what we already have as state law. It's been a state law for many years. And I can share this with you, but if you have read House Bill 5916, it talks about health certificates. It's going to talk about certificate of veterinary inspections. It's already part of it. It's already part of the law. But here's the thing, no one inspects it. We do at the local level. So if we get a call at a pet shop, we go over there, we inspect, where did they get the dog from? Those are really important things that we look at. It has to have a certificate of veterinary inspection. That tells us where the animal originated from and where it was being shipped to. Then it also tells us when a potential person is coming in to purchase this pet, they're going to get that same certificate. If this bill was to pass, I want us to all collectively think that if that was to pass, we would have no authority to ever regulate any of that. And if you just look back in 2016, when we had canine influenza outbreak, we only had 2 dogs, but we were the only place in the entire state of Michigan that had 2 dogs that came down with canine influenza, and it was a really big deal. The state came down and worked with us. Just recently, we had, a few years ago, the Shelby Township. We had highly pathogenic avian influenza, and we had to stop all those imports. And if we take that away from the municipalities, I really believe it's going to be really detrimental to how we do animal control in our communities. And I'm totally not in support for any of these bills because I would never want, if we just look at Shelby Township, I just mentioned, they had to enact a lot of ordinances in a very quick manner so that we didn't run into another situation where we had people in pet shops kind of doing these things. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have, and I hope that you support the motion to not support this House bill.
Thank you. Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for being here today. And I also like to, thank the sponsor for her concern and interest in the welfare of the animals in Macomb County. I'm a little bit torn, not to the specifics of this bill, or this rather resolution specifically, but in general, I don't like to cast votes on state legislation, federal legislation that isn't under our county control, so to speak, because when you're at the state level, the federal level, you have the opportunity to hear from the sponsor of the bill and why he or she may have introduced those bills. And you have an opportunity to hear testimony from different entities who support or oppose the bill. And we typically don't have that opportunity here when we're asked to make cast a vote on on something that's going on at the state or federal level. The sponsor of the bill, I don't know personally, Representative Vaupel, but I know he's a veterinarian in, I believe, Livingston County. Do you know why he introduced the bill as a veterinarian?
I do not. I do not know why he introduced the bill, nor would I ever want to speak on that because I don't know.
Okay.
What I do know, though, is that in April of 2017, in this bill, House Bill 5916, talks about the USDA doing inspections on these large-scale breeders and pet shops. You can look it up. April 2017, USDA pulled off all their reports that were available to the consumers off their websites. So Now, there's really no way to really track the reports unless you actually write into your FOIA request.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if there's anybody here to speak on behalf of the two bills. Do you know?
I do have I'm lower on the list, but I do have a response to specifically what you just brought up, but I don't want to, yeah, we don't have anybody speaking on it, but I don't want to cut in line on the commissioners, but
Okay.
I will be responding, thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm a little torn because on one hand, I want to do what's in the best interest of of protecting animals and health and general welfare. On the other hand, I've got, when I was elected, I had this policy where I don't want to be casting votes where I don't hear, testimony from both sides. It'd be nice if we had some pet shop owners here to share with their perspective of how this would impact them, or somebody like that. And oftentimes we just get a much more limited opportunity at the county level when dealing with state or federal issues. So maybe there'll be some elimination. I'm not sure if I'm going to vote no on the principle of not voting, on resolutions that are federal or state issues, or if I'm going to vote with the resolution. But it won't have anything to do with my criticism of the intent or of what you guys are trying to do. So thank you.
Thank you, and give me a chance to challenge him. I might get his vote. Commissioners, Chair Smith.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. To what Commissioner Drollet said, what we don't have at this level is an opportunity to be pressured by lobbyists to vote one way or another either. And I know that a lot of bills up there might, you might hear both sides of the story, but that really doesn't matter. A lot of times they vote the way that, sometimes, unfortunately, they've been pressured to vote. What I don't like is that it's kind of limits local control. And what I do like is local control. And when I have someone from our local municipality that comes and tells us that a bill up there will restrict and hurt our ability to govern, kind of self-govern down here, then I have to go with what I hear from down here. And it certainly makes, complete sense. I do understand, right, that sometimes, you do miss a key point of the other side of the story. But I was going to say my first question, and my question before you spoke was, are you planning on, or have you gone up to speak in opposition of this bill?
No, not yet. I did speak with Deputy County Executive Mark Delden, because I would like to go up there and speak about it.
I think that's important, right? I mean, I think
do
people
too.
need to hear the local side of this and what you see as a problem and what you've seen as a problem and why this shouldn't, go through. So I would encourage, Deputy Executive Mark Delden to
I was trying to get all those titles.
I
in
know,
there,
to allow you to go up there, because obviously it has the potential to either hurt or benefit, depending on which way it goes, our county and your department in particular.
And if I may speak, it's one of the things that, we all should be proud of is 5 years ago, things had really dramatically changed. And it wasn't just because of me, but it was because of all of us. We really start putting animal welfare on the forefront. And now we set the tone for the rest of the state. I work with Oakland County, Lapeer, St. Clair, Bay City came down, we worked with Detroit. And so we start really setting this tone, and it's like we're really kind of the role models that everyone's following. Mm-hmm. And I really would hate to be, start unraveling all this progress that we have really done, all of us collectively over all these years.
I agree. Thank you. I hope you get the opportunity or can make the time to get up there and speak to
Thank
this.
you. I will definitely make the time if I'm allowed.
Thank
Take
you,
a second.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will defer to you if you would like to respond to Commissioner Drollet, and then I'll take it after you, if I may.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's the exact opposite of what you were saying. We're not getting into their business. They're getting into our business. It's been an attack for the last, I want to say about 4 years on local units of government, bill after bill after bill that starts a bill to prohibit local units of government, ... And every single time they do it, they're taking away a piece of control that used to belong or had always belonged with local units of government. So to me, the subject isn't as important as it is that we stand up and say, stop doing this. I want a resolution simply speaking against them taking away local control, and I've seen it. Just one quick example, and then I'll yield. I mean, there was an outstate lawmaker, it didn't pass, thank God, but there was an outstate lawmaker that introduced a bill to prohibit local units of government from limiting the number of carrier pigeons an individual could have at their home. That may be well and good out in your 100 acres where you don't have anybody around you, but my next door neighbor's 10 feet from me. Can you imagine if the city couldn't limit them from having 10,000 carrier pigeons in my neighborhood? It's an attack on our control. Parts of it is meant to help in other areas, but it doesn't fix helping in other areas by taking away all of our rights. So that's my statement on that, and I'll yield to Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. We're all starting on you, Mr. Drolet. But I appreciate your output. I really do. I appreciate your. But I look at it this way: we have Officer Randazzo here, and incidentally, thank you, Officer. He's passionate. He's passionate about his animals, and every one of us know that. Don't mess with Officer Randazzo's animals because he's very passionate about it. But more than that, he's informed, and he's also kept us all informed. So when he comes forward regarding these bills and says this stuff stinks, I'll take him for what he says because I know how he feels and I know what he wants to do about this. So it's not blind trust. It's trust because of the knowledge that he's acquired and shared with all of us. So that's why I have no problems with this resolution. Thank you, Officer.
Thank you, Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Thank you, Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have you talked to our Macomb delegation of representatives at all on the matter?
I have not yet.
Okay. I think it's important that you do talk to them because ultimately it's going to be up to them on who, if this thing passes or not. And I do agree with what
I've
everybody
been writing letters.
Okay.
But as Commissioner Smith had stated, I really would love to go up to Lansing to talk about it. Because I have the actual bill. Just one of the sentences says, is any provision in an ordinance, policy, resolution, or rule adopted by a governing body once after the effective date of this act will be unenforceable. So anything that any community or municipality in our entire county already has in place will be unenforceable. That would be the most helpless feeling that our own residents would have if we had a complaint about a pet shop, or maybe they, obtained a pet from a local pet store, and they come to us complaining, and we say, there's just really nothing we can do. I mean, that's not the kind of community, that's not the kind of leaders and officials we want to be for our communities.
No, I agree, and I don't understand why why anybody would want to take away local control. I mean, just take a look at this board here, okay? Where I live and where Veronica lives is different even than where Commissioner Brown lives. Commissioner Brown's, they might have a different outlook on what's permissible in their local community, just like Harrison Township and St. Clair Shores are going to have a different outlook of what's important for their community. So it doesn't make any sense. A community can be as liberal as they want in terms of letting people do whatever they want with puppies, or they can be strict if they have to. And I just don't understand what the reasoning would be. Despite what Leon says, I always like to hear both sides. It just makes no sense to take away from local control at all. I don't see any reasons, and I'm going to fully support it. Thank you for bringing it to the board.
Thank you, Commissioner Sager.
Just one question. Did any of the Macomb County elected officials in Lansing co-sponsor this bill?
No, the only co-sponsor that, I only saw the one sponsor, I believe his first name's Hank, I can't have his last name written down. But he was the only sponsor that I've seen on the bill so far.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But if we find out, I will definitely let you know about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're talking a lot about local control here, and I just want to mention that this board did pass a resolution not too long ago about the state, introducing a septic code, the statewide septic code. I just wanted to mention that really briefly, but I also have the House fiscal analysis right here, the summary right in front of me, because as some of you know, my boss is a state representative. That's my other job. She sits on the Health Policy Committee, and she's going to vote in favor of these bills as far as I know right now, unless there are amendments, because as we all know, there could be 10 amendments. We don't know. But I'm reading the summary, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of this because I understand what you're doing. I understand the local control aspect of it. But the summary says, House Bills 5916 and 5917 would respectively establish standards a pet shop must meet to be considered a qualified pet shop, and prohibit a local unit of government from regulating a pet shop that meets those standards. So it sounds like this is saying that the state is going to have minimal, or set a bar, a standards bar, and then after that, if they don't meet those standards, then there's consequences. This is the part that I'm trying to understand. Can you help me, Chief?
Sure. So the state of Michigan Department of Agriculture, has already established what a pet shop would be and the minimum standard of care through what we call the Animal Welfare Act. So they already have a standard of how we could house, puppies, kittens, and ferrets. Those are our three main animals that we kind of regulate in the state of Michigan, specifically for disease control, because we know we import them. Ferrets specifically are imported from one specific organization throughout the country. So we already have those laws on the actual books through the state of Michigan. It talks about their pet health certificates, certificate of veterinary inspections, and all that bill at 5916 is doing is just regurgitating what, and I brought the laws for you for the state of Michigan, what's already on the books. The hard part is that you cannot if you pass House Bill 5916, it's attached to House Bill 5917. They're going to go together. To me, in their definition, a qualified pet shop means a pet shop that complies with all of the requirements in Section 5B of, Act 287. And to me, if you looked at Act 287, it's just going to describe who needs a pet shop license. Here's the problem. 2009, the state stopped licensing pet shops. So there is no license for pet shops. Who's going to license the pet shops? That's our problem. And if this bill passes, right, we say, well, your local unit of government, your animal control division for your county, that's me. That could be Shelby Township, it could be Clinton Township, but we won't have the authority. And that's why none of this really makes sense to me, because who in the state is going to inspect the pet shops? And all this bill, 5917, talks about is pet shops. Doesn't talk about large-scale breeders or anything like that. It just specifically talks about qualified pet shops. That's it. But who licensed pet shops? Nobody. We inspect them. In 2009, the state stopped licensing them. And so there would be no governing. If they pass, the first line says a bill to prohibit local unit of government from enacting or enforcing those ordinances. And then it's going to make everything that is already on the books unenforceable. And that's where I think a lot of the problem comes in.
Okay, Chairwoman, if I may continue, I've got another
I'm
question.
sorry, that was
for
very
you.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Got a lot of passion in here.
Let's just, for all intents and purposes, let's say that these two bills pass and it becomes law. If these standards aren't met, who enforces those standards? Is that you? Is that somebody from the state, DEQ? It's ambiguous, we don't know?
Yep. No one's going to, because the state already does not since 2009. But the way I read this bill is we would not be able to enforce it, right? Because it's saying that, a bill to prohibit a local unit of government from enforcing or enacting any ordinance. So how would we go to a pet shop and say, wait, these animals are housed improperly, you need to be doing this?
But that's why I'm asking the question. It says locals wouldn't be able to do a new ordinance or anything like that, but would you be able to enforce the state law? You wouldn't be able, the locals wouldn't be able to create a local ordinance that you would then enforce. Is this saying that the state would set these standards and then you would be enforcing those standards?
We would not enforce the state law at the county level.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Just with respect to that, I'm not sure that's 100% correct. I think law enforcement does all the time with regard to state laws. However, what you were speaking to with regard to the septic was a resolution encouraging regulation. These bills that are to prohibit local units of government are bills to prohibit local units of government having regulation that is over and above or any different than what the state is setting. And whether you're for or against regulations in general, it should be that a local unit of government within their area and their circumstances ought to be able to enact regulations that may be more stringent than the state. So I do think there's a distinction between the two. I'm not sure if I agree with you 100% on, we do enforce state laws in circumstances, so.
We do. And so what I was referring to is we do not enforce state laws for pet shops that we inspect. We have our animal control regulations for the county. They are much more robust, and that's what we have had all our municipalities adopt. And we use those regulations, and that's what we use through the prosecutor's office.
Thank you, Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's some broad philosophical principles involved with local control. For example, we wouldn't want, the state has gotten involved in banned local control when they believe that the local control violates individual rights. And therefore they would say, you know, for example, I'm just thinking of an extreme example. You know, I have 5 fish tanks, and I go to a lot of pet shops and buy plants and fish and so forth. I guess it's theoretically possible in some uber animal rightsy place they decide that fish are captives, and therefore they need to ban pets because it's a violation of the fish's rights to be kept in a tank. And so the local control in Ann Arborville or someplace decides to ban captive animals because it's immoral in their opinion. And the state might then pass a law saying, you know, you can't prohibit. Now, I'm taking an extreme example of that. But oftentimes that's why, sometimes it's, you know, why a state might, in certain cases, say you can't regulate an area that takes away the rights of individuals in some people's minds. And similarly, when it comes to an issue like this, when we are presented with the information that's available to us, I totally understand your perspective, and I totally understand the perspective of the sponsor and those that are going to vote for this. I get that completely. I just wish I could understand, I wish that Representative Vaupel would hear, and as a veterinarian, I could ask him why he introduced the bill.
Right.
What prompted him to introduce the bill? It'd be nice to hear from the American Kennel Club. It'd be nice to hear from the Association of Humane Society. It'd be nice, or whatever. It'd be nice to hear from the groups are not all lobbyists and they're professional, sleek lobbyists. You want to hear from the American Kennel Club because there's a lot of people who breed dogs who are affiliated with the Kennel Club that may have a perspective on it. And those are interesting perspectives and important perspectives to have when voting on things. I understand you're providing a very honest and direct and informational perspective that you very strongly believe in. And you're probably 100% right. It's just nice to hear it from the bill sponsor and the other perspectives to make sure we're getting all the information. That's why, in general, not specific to this particular piece of information, particular resolution, I'm just very reticent to vote on, hey, we should tell the federal government they ought to do this, or the state, even when it affects us, unless we've got the same information that our state lawmakers are able to get through hearings that we don't really, unfortunately, have. So that being said, I'll probably vote against the resolution, but I certainly understand why people are supporting it and introducing it. And I just wish we were able to have the same information on these state issues that state lawmakers have available. Thank you. Madam
Okay,
Chair.
thank you. Commissioner Leonetti, you withdrew? Okay, thank you. Seeing no more speakers, please vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, motion passes 10 to 2 with Commissioner Kraft and Drollet voting no. Next, we have correspondence, Treasurer's Office 2018 First Quarter Report, and we have Chief Deputy Treasurer, Mr. Biondo, if you'd like to come and speak. Or if you don't, I know you're a little under the weather.
That's all right. Hello, Commissioners. Joe Beyond on behalf of the County Treasurer. In regards to the first quarter report, I just wanted to invite all the commissioners at any time to come down to the second floor and meet with my investment officer if you wanted to do a deeper dive on the report. Other than that, I was just available to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, and it's moved to receive and file by Brown, supported by Kraft. Give him a week to get a little bit better before you go down to talk to him. Commissioner Dujay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here, Joe.
My pleasure.
Question, and you probably got a good answer for it. There's a difference between the par value and the market value on this stuff. And it seems to be in the general fund and the DTR fund. Those are the only two that are questionable. Why are we off $1.5 million?
I would defer to our investment officer on that, and unfortunately, I intended to have him appear with me today. He's not with me, and I wouldn't want to give you a answer that might not be on point.
Fair enough.
May I follow up with you on that?
Yes, I'd
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank
My
you, Madam
pleasure.
Chair.
Seeing no other speakers, please vote on your iPad.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners.
Motion passes 12-0. New business, is there any new business? Seeing none, public participation, does anyone wish to be heard? Anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Motion to adjourn by Dujay, supported by Gillette. Please vote on your iPad.